Yesterday, Microsoft put up a 30-minute documentary deep dive into South of Midnight, which is a game they have coming out in 2025. And let me know if my popcorn crunching gets too loud. I'll mute myself.
People together, and magic is all around you. It's about learning empathy for people who aren't like you. It's finding hidden strengths.
It's so beautifully powerful, and I think that it just sort of leaps off the screen.
There's so much atmospheric potential. The landscapes, they're almost like a character in and of itself.
We made these concept songs for all of the creatures. It's not often you get that creative license.
Communicate with them, heal them, learn from them. Watching Hazel just fly through the world doing all of these things is just a lot of fun.
The art style is really cool in the cutscenes. I'm very curious if when you're playing it has that same kind of herky-jerky stop-motion feel, which I hope it does, but I hope it still plays well.
I spent a lot of my free time after I had exhausted all the books I wanted to read, exploring sort of all of these abandoned farms and forgotten places.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Do you know who this is? That's David Sears. You guys. This guy is amazing if this is the same guy I'm thinking of. David Sears was the designer on the original SOCOM games, and I tried to hire him away to come to Santa Monica. Phenomenal designer. And he also did this game for Nintendo that I saw at E3 that was like a slot car game, and it was absolutely excellent. And then he went off and did a game before Drawn to Death came out that was similar, not in visual style, but it was like a free-to-play shooter, kind of over the top, and it didn't kind of go anywhere. And I had kind of honestly forgotten about the guy, but he's the real deal, man. So excellent. I don't know if the game's going to be good, bad, or otherwise. I don't know if he did We Happy Few, which I haven't played, but I heard was just kind of eh. But holy shit, this guy's the real fucking deal. The real fucking deal. I'm super excited now. I was like excited. Now I'm excited. He's not David J.C. Penney. He's David Sears. Wink.
It doesn't take too long before the accumulation of mysteries demand an answer. And my imagination provided the answers. So I started inventing adventure stories as I was tramping around and exploring these places that usually featured monsters. And monsters became my best friends. That exhilarating sense of discovery, never known.
I'm excited for the game. I'm excited David Sears is leading up the project. I just want anyone watching this, if you don't already know this, but you probably know this because you come to this channel, all of this is horseshit. I'm not saying it's not based in truth, what he's saying. I'm sure it is. The monsters became my best friends. I invented, and it's so overly romanticized that I think it's just damaging to people who are trying to understand what the creative process is. It's so not good. But anyway, let's keep going. That's not a criticism of the game. That's a criticism of this style of documentary. Sony's made these before. I hate them when Sony does them. Now I hate them when Xbox does them.
Knowing what you'll find. This sort of thing is what I wanted to create in a game. My desire to create a love letter to the South.
Okay, well, start by getting rid of the racism. Sorry. I love the South. I do. I don't love everything about it, of course, but I'm going to shut up. Let's watch the show.
None of us were experts in Southern folklore, but we had this monumental task of building a world that was iconic, did feel authentically Southern.
You guys should call Sweet Baby.
It was with a bunch of creatures that no one in Montreal had ever heard of. I mean, there are lots of people in the South who haven't heard of some of these cryptids. We reached out to Donna Washington, who is a world-renowned storyteller.
The stories that come out of the Southern Gothic stories is kind of what you're dealing with in South of Midnight, are all stories about surviving in difficult times. They're about facing the things that scare you. They're about tricking the things that scare you. But what was interesting with that team was as they got into the stories and they sort of joined us, it became clear, it became more obvious to them what the stories were about.
We liked the idea of not just the South, but the Southern Gothic slant towards the Deep South. The stories are usually set in a small town. They usually involve something supernatural, and they're usually soaked in atmosphere.
I will say I do
And so
love
for
Southern
us,
Gothic
how
stuff,
I would
though.
have translated that to something visual is really leaning on the weight of the past. Old decaying buildings, overgrowth, quiet places, old houses, places that tell a lot of old stories.
I mean, I will say so far, I am very engaged. I'm interested in this. I was from the moment I saw it. I think the setting is great. I love hearing about the Southern Gothic and the folklore and the kind of tall tales that they're incorporating. That's kind of a neat, fresh angle. And I love that it's David Sears is creative directing it. So, you know, I'm so far, I'm super fucking engaged with this. You know, everyone, this is, like I said earlier, this is one of those Raising Kratos documentaries where everyone is so earnest about the process and trying to romanticize it when it's just like not good to do that, in my opinion. But
there's some sort of whispered rumors about creatures that...
No, it's not like Souls, Ludo. And Brett says combat will make it or break it for me. It looks like it could be great, or it could be like Flintlock. My understanding is what they said to IGN was they said the gameplay is going to be like, it's looking more and more like the gameplay is going to be more than serviceable, but it really is about the world, the story, the adventure. It's a 10-hour game. It doesn't sound like this is meant to be a core mechanics-based experience. It's more, I'm trying to think what you could kind of liken it to that's already come along. But I don't think Flintlock, which is more of a Souls game, or Life of P or Wukong, it's not that.
In that spirit, I devised 2 week-long excursion/research trips to the South for all of the directors.
It's so funny. It's like usually like with Sony, it's like, oh, we went to the Nordic countries, or we went to Japan to research, you know, Ghost of Tsushima and Yodi or whatever. And you get like, you turn the receipts in and it's like, holy shit, per team member, it was like $8,000. You go to the South, it's like, is this a mistake? Your hotel costs $22 a night. It's like, yeah, we're in the South, you know. It's like, it costs, it's like your fancy dinner was at like, you know, came to like $130 for like 20 people. Yeah. Shut up. I can talk about things like that if I want to. I'm from the South. Voodoo. I don't know if Voodoo's exclusively Louisiana, Nick. I don't know. Stop motion animation, so clever. What a cool look. It doesn't always feel terrible to play Fupy. I was playing a Steam demo recently, like Spirit of the Samurai that does it. It's kind of like a side scroller, and it actually can work. But so far, it seems like most of the most of that kind of herky-jerky stop motion is in the cutscenes. I'm not really seeing a lot of it in the gameplay. That's horrible, Fupy. I'm not even going to read that. God, you're a racist. How can you be so racist? How can you be so racist? You're going to hell. At least I hope so.
Possibly help them. So that mood is then going to expand out into the environment.
You got my moonshine girl!
Theme, how can we...
Hey, come back now.
Look, where'd they go?
Where'd they go?
Here.
Oh, it's the same guy.
Because this game is so very
Lutron, I
specific,
don't know when
you
this is
Hazel
set.
being
I'm not
from
sure.
the Southeast, Hazel being an athlete, you know, being a track star. And I wanted the intricacies of those things
Hey, it's Jar Jar.
to really pop out in Hazel. And it's the type of subtlety.
You know, all day they were like, Misa gonna go see Hazel?
Story and her story.
I mean, they all look like they've been carved out of wood, but that's the style. Oh, that guy's awesome. Look at that
Crafted
guy.
style is applied into everything. There's something soulful about that, and I think it resonates. They have a really special style that has this sort of dark, twisted
That is really cool,
eeriness
though. I
that
like this
was
style.
something we wanted.
I don't know what people buy full price anymore, but I think it looks great, PK. I mean, let's put it this way. I think that would be great if a game like this is going to get more people to
I was
try
looking
it
for a
on Game
strong
Pass, that's
blend of
fantastic
diegetic
because
music,
you may be right.
you know,
People
using
might go, "What's
instruments
that?"
And musical
But
styles that are
again,
common
that's
to
why I've always
the
loved
various
subscription
regions of the
services.
game.
Well, I don't think people wouldn't spend money, Jezebel, but I think it's just, you know, it's artsy. It's, you know, a lot of people spending full price these days. It's, they tend to buy more product-based stuff, right? Or something they already know, like Spider-Man or whatever. But full price is really hard, especially for something that doesn't sell itself. Like, we can all look at this and go, this is cool, this is interesting, but the number of people that are going to drop 60 or 70 bucks for that, I have found to be not near big enough to merit the budgets for something like this. Whereas if it was like, oh, it's a cool violent war game, it's like, I know that. I'll buy that, you know. What do you mean it's a terribly written story? What are you talking about? They haven't told you the story. It's this woman and she's in the deep south. It's a cool setting. The art looks cool. Seems as good of a story for a video game as any so far from what we know. What's the problem with it?
It's something that's sort of in your soul, I guess, from the time you're born. I always said I'm kind of a, 25-year-old man in a 60-year-old body.
I tell you what, he has always said that. He came home the other night, he had a jug of moonshine, had a cigar in the other hand. He was like, Daddy, I feel like I'm a 25-year-old man. I love it when he says that. As I've said many times, I grew up with this shit. I grew up with it. I watched these things obsessively about Indiana Jones, the movies, and the Star Wars movies, and all this shit. And it sells you this fantasy of the process, and I just find it really dumb and unhealthy. What you really want to see is, as I've said this before, Corey had that part in the documentary Raising Kratos that was where he was in his car, and it was just like he was stressing out. That was the realest thing I've seen in a documentary like this. All this other stuff is just insanely polished to the point of just being like, I know it's marketing, but all it really does is get people to go, I want to be in that industry. That looks awesome. It's like, yeah, but that's not really what it is. That's the polished version of it they're trying to sell you. All right. Hey, man. Now, again, it'll probably come into PS5 as well, but I think that looks really potentially great. I think if you watch that trailer and you walk away and you say, that is not compelling. I mean, it's subjective. Obviously, I support, you don't need my sport, but whatever you're into. But I thought that was fantastic. The documentary itself was a little full of itself, as all of these kind of marketing documentaries are. But the fact that this is on somebody's woke list at the moment, for what? This looks cool. This looks really fucking cool. I mean, if this is on someone's woke list simply based on what's in this trailer, then the name of the list needs to be changed from woke list to racist list. Because what are you talking about? This looks neat. I think it looks unique and fresh and all the things people say they want in games. The art style is unique. The narrative is unique. The only thing that seemed a little bit of the weakest, although I think the game director on board gives me a lot more confidence in the gameplay they showed, is the gameplay, which doesn't look bad. It just looks like, okay, yeah, I get that. Been there, done that. Apparently it's only a 10-hour game, which is fantastic. But I'm excited for this. I like unique new ideas. We don't have enough of them in the business at this level, and I'm in.